I was hanging out at Wrigley Field a lot. That was kind of my secondary home, when I was a kid. Growing up in the situation that we were, we always had each other's back.
The options he wanted were not the options he had, and knew that that was going to be the route to get him to where he wanted to be.
He grew up in this park. He spent a lot of time in this park as a kid. He was a bat boy here and took a lot of batting practice down in that tunnel when he was a kid. So what a storybook ending for him to say he actually played baseball here.
I've been playing baseball probably as long as I can remember, as long as I could walk. I was kind of born into the baseball family a little bit. My dad played college and professional, and then he got into working in professional baseball as a scout, and eventually worked his way to the front office. So that's just kind of how I grew up.
Early memories of Dave was a guy who always wanted a baseball. He always seemed like he always wanted to play catch, and I couldn't throw him enough batting practice.
That's all he ever wanted to do, all he ever wanted to talk about.
Seemed like when he had a baseball uniform on and he was on a baseball field, it just seemed like that's what I think of David.
Yeah, growing up I had a pretty cool childhood, I would say. Being that my dad was in the position that he was with the Chicago Cubs, I was able to kind of hobnob around a lot of the big league players at the time. I was hanging out at Wrigley Field a lot. That was kind of my secondary home, when I was a kid. For spring break, I would go to spring training, and spring breaks would be about 2 weeks long, and I would always get to miss about a week or 2 weeks extra. Just go down there and live with my dad and just hang out at the ball field all day.
They would show up at Fitch Park and they'd be in their uniform, and a lot of time I didn't see them till they were at lunch, and thank goodness they behaved themselves and they learned some great valuable lessons in the clubhouse. Probably some I don't want to know, but they got some great lessons growing up, and very fortunate to say they grew up in that environment.
Maggie probably saw it as like going to spring training every year was something she had to do. And not that she didn't enjoy the pool and everything, but TJ he liked it, but he also liked to swim and do other things too. David, he would set his alarm at 5:30. He would be up because he had to get there early, because he had to be there to get in his uniform and to be there for early work. And batting practice was at 10. He had a whole routine to it, and he was there from 6 in the morning until, 4:35 every afternoon. So I think it was just a different experience for each one of them.
I can remember waking up at 8 a.m. and going to Fitch Park and having early work with Ryan Sandberg, who was a coach for the Cubs at the time. Staying with some of the players if my dad had to go to a dinner.
They would kind of pick their babysitters, who they wanted their babysitters to be. One dinner, it was Ryan Flaherty, DJ LeMahieu, Brendan Geyer, and someone else, and they took him to Dave & Buster's to play video games and then go back to the Mazzona Motel to wait for us to pick them up.
I can remember driving in Carlos Zambrano's Lamborghini when I was probably 10 years old.
But they just saw it as, those were their friends. That's who they hung out with. And I think now they can look back and think, wow, that was something.
My siblings, so I have an older sister, Maggie. I would say she's kind of the brainiac of the family. She's actually the first Dr. Fleita ever in our generation. Her and I are very close. Growing up in the situation that we were, we always had each other's back. Same applies for my younger brother, TJ. He's actually playing baseball at Illinois Central Community College here in Peoria.
I think they kind of grew up a lot more tight-knit than we think, especially as you see them older now. What a fun thing to see the kids grow together. And
they are so close now, and as parents, you love to see your kids get along, and that they choose to be around each other, and that they have those fun times together, and that they lean on each other.
They're all doing something different. They've all gone to different schools, but you can tell they've got a bond that will be a bond that'll last a lifetime. And as a parent, as a dad, that sure makes me happy.
Probably gotten closer as years have gone on. Always have each other's backs.
Well, I would think sometimes not having a dad around, sometimes that's got to be tough when your communication's through phone and nowadays through via text. It's part of life. A lot of people have that occupation where they're not at home. I hoped they knew that my heart was always with them and they were always on my mind.
He missed some things growing up, but we always knew that it was for the betterment of the family. He always had a kind of a niche for making sure that he was there for some of the bigger dates. Yeah, so obviously it's every kid's dream to play Division I baseball.
That was always his plan. I think a lot of kids think about going to school and joining a fraternity and doing a more typical college experience, and his was always going to be about playing ball.
I don't think I really started to turn into the player that I am today, probably until my senior year.
The options he wanted were not the options he had, and knew that that was going to be the route to get him to where he wanted to be.
So I decided to commit to a community college things started to progress from there. Then I actually transferred out of there to Southeast Community College, where I was there for a year.
I mean, junior college is not like D1 baseball. There's no glamour to it, that's for sure, but it is all baseball all the time.
When I was leaving Southeast Community College, I was actually hurt there for most of the 2 years. So I was kind of at a point where nobody was really expressing much interest. And actually I was really close to live with some of my best friends from high school, and was just going to be done with baseball. But my parents actually convinced me to go out that summer for my sophomore year and play summer ball one more time. At that point I was kind of more or less healthy. I ended up having a really good summer. Coach Dominguez came out and saw me play in Virginia Beach. Things moved pretty quickly from there, and I ended up committing here about 2 weeks before classes started in the fall. But yeah, no, me and Jed have been really close. We lived together the first year at St. James apartment, and then we actually moved together over to one of the baseball houses. We both had ties to the game. His older brother pitched in the big leagues for the Reds, and obviously my dad was involved in the game as well.
You kind of have like a different perspective on things growing up and seeing how things really work. So it's really cool. It does put a little more pressure on you, you know, like just knowing the ins and outs of the business. Baseball's a business past a certain level, and you get to see that. It's also a good thing, you know, you understand a lot more going forward why things happen, what's going on, so it's great, yeah.
That was one thing that kind of brought us together initially, someone that I'll keep in touch with for the rest of my life.
He grew up in this park. He spent a lot of time in this park as a kid. He was a bat boy here and took a lot of batting practice down in that tunnel when he was a kid. So what a storybook ending for him to say he actually played baseball here in this park here in Peoria.
It's his dream come true, and I don't think as a parent you want it to see anything else, and to see him do so well in school and to play. I think also as a parent to see the relationships he has with his teammates, I'm grateful.
My time here at Bradley has been really special. The growth as a person goes really beyond baseball. Just it's the best experience that I've had playing this game, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.